Hi, I'm Anton Kreil at the Institute of Trading and Portfolio Management. I'm joined here today with Anthony Iser. Anthony is one of our newest senior trading mentors here at the Institute and resides in Singapore. Anthony has been around the market for 25 years, and he's seen it, done it, bought the t-shirt. He's been everywhere, on the wealth management side, on the investment banking side, and on the hedge fund side. And I'm so happy to have him here to sit down and have this conversation. Anthony, welcome to London.
Anton, pleasure to be here.
Pleasure. So, Anthony, you've just recently joined the Institute. I want to go right back to the beginning of your career. Where did everything start? Because I know you came literally from the bottom and worked your way up. It's a pretty amazing story.
Well, yeah, it wasn't the graduate program path that lots of people take. I started working in the back office, was at university doing a totally unrelated degree, and just fell in love with the industry. So transferred to finance, did that at night after working 10 or 12 hours a day, and quickly moved through the ranks to the back office into wealth management in Melbourne, where I spent a lot of time trading options and equities for the wealth management clients. The investment bank at JP Morgan recruited me to their team in Melbourne. I spent 4 years trading and offering sales advice on equities to institutions in Melbourne.
Okay.
And then JP Morgan asked me if I wanted to go and travel overseas and work in one of their foreign offices. So for the Australian business, I went to Singapore in 2004.
Okay.
So 2004, into Singapore with JP Morgan. Asia was booming, Australia was booming. And then in 2006, UBS approached me, and I joined UBS in 2006 and worked through to 2010 with them, all through the financial crisis. And 2010 decided I've had a little bit too much of this at the moment. So I took a couple of years off. Spent that time with my family, which was wonderful, traveling around Asia.
Yeah.
And then a former client, called me up and asked if I wanted to work for them, helping them find ideas in the market. So I went to work for Tantalon Capital Advisors, helping them find ideas in Asian markets. And then in 2014, UBS asked me to come back and work for them in their Asian business. So I spent another couple of years working there and finished up in 2016. And since then, I've just been trading my own money and working on a couple of little small businesses on the side.
Okay, cool. So I guess the period where you moved from Melbourne to Singapore on the investment banking side, that to me, when I look at your resume, your career, seems to be the period where you got your most notoriety in the industry, when you made that move to Singapore and you were at JP, then UBS. Tell us about that part of your career. It sounds like a really interesting part.
Well, I guess it was post the tech boom of 2000, and Australia was very much out of favour during that time. The currency had fallen below 50 cents. No one wanted to know about old school stocks. Everyone wanted to know about internet stocks. And when that bubble burst, people returned their focus to the key drivers of economies. China was starting to boom as well in the early 2000s. And so the focus was very much on Australian companies, Australian resources companies, from tiny little companies that were nothing more than a patch of ground to BHP and Rio, the biggest mining companies in the world. So generating ideas in those sectors, finding other areas in the Australian market were, I guess, the key things that helped me stand out from the crowd.
Okay, so in terms of performance of portfolios during that time, obviously it was like the massive tail end of the commodities boom, the commodities super cycle, right? How did you get on in terms of performance during that time?
Well, we managed external portfolios for clients as well. So some of the big hedge funds around the world outsource their portfolio management to the sell side. So I managed a number of portfolios for companies like that. One of my portfolios was top 25 out of 1,000 portfolios globally. So, I performed very well. And the advisory side regularly ranked top 3 in Asia for my ideas with the hedge fund community. So I guess all in all, pretty happy with how things went.
So that essentially, that period was pretty key in the career, because that kind of spurred you on to move on to other things, and probably why there was demand for you to come back into the industry post 2010 when you had that leave.
Well, that's right. And I think, a client's only going to hire you because you've provided great ideas for them in the past.
Sure.
A firm that you worked for is only going to ask you to come back if they know you've done that before and know how you work. So, yeah, it was a pretty key period. There was ideas that stood out beyond the resources world and beyond the Australian banks, which were the big names.
Yeah.
There's a company called ResMed, which I got much of the Asian market involved in after doing some very deep dive work, which is not something that I would always do as a client facing. It's not, we've got a team of research analysts that do that. But I saw an opportunity in a company that had a catalyst coming up. ResMed is a sleep apnea mask making company.
Okay.
And in the old days, if you had sleep apnea, or if a doctor thought you did, you had to go off to a sleep clinic, lie down and sleep. And it was like a hospital setting, tie you up to machines and away you go. The CDC in the US was looking at, and Medicaid were looking at ways of shortening that process, making it easier for people to get treatment.
Okay.
So I did a deep dive, found a whole bunch of online transcripts from those meetings, which were freely public available information, but no one else had seemed to find it. And you read those and you knew with a great deal of certainty that they were going to make the decision to allow home sleep testing, which would be a huge positive for ResMed. Okay. So I've got clients that still, or former clients, that still hold that stock 10 years later. Okay. So it's those types of things, I guess, that help you stand out.
So these outsourced portfolios, and in terms of your performance during that time, obviously it was good performance. What do you put that down to? Do you put that down to ideas and your, for example, this example that you've just given, your deep dive and research into these ideas? Do you put it down to that type of commitment to generating really high quality ideas all the time?
It's two components, which is two components of portfolio management and trading in general. One is the idea generation. Yeah. The other component is the discipline of how you structure the idea, but then your risk management. Okay. So risk management wasn't something that I was particularly strong at, but through trial and error and understanding what's going on with other clients, understanding my own weaknesses on that front, that wound up becoming a strong point. I think idea generation remains my strong point. Yeah. But the risk management certainly helped. It's as important as idea generation. Yeah. And probably the part that retail investors least understand about the investment process. Okay. So in terms of your trade idea generation process, obviously you've seen what we teach retail traders. We have the systematic, we try to provide a systematic process to generate ideas so retail traders can use that as a template to put it on repeat so it can last them their entire lifetime. Your trade idea generation process, obviously you've had your own for years, okay? How do you generate an idea and turn it into an actionable idea where the green light's on and you say, now I'm ready to trade, I'm ready to put position on? Well, I think you hit the nail on the head in terms of having a template and something that's repeatable, because if you are just randomly shooting in the dark, every now and then you might come across a good idea. Right. But if you can have that process that allows you to take that process to different markets, to different sectors, you can build from the top down and then the bottom up, very solid ideas. The key component, I think, that I focused on was the qualitative components. Yep. So you've got the quantitative, the numbers, where they stand within a market, where they stand within a sector.
That's all mechanical and learnable, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I think the part that takes time and you need, it takes time, you've got to educate yourself, is the qualitative parts, working out what drives an industry, how lots of game theory type things come into it.
Sure.
People are going to raise prices. Can they raise prices if their costs are going up? Those types of things.
Okay.
It's something you can educate yourself about. You can learn about industries. It's never written in stone.
Yeah. And it's always changing as well. It's dynamic, right?
Exactly. It's always changing. What happened for a sector or a company in one part of the cycle might not happen again because there could be new competitors in. And as everyone talks about now, disruption from technology can have big impacts on these types of things. So it's just putting all those pieces of the puzzle together. And sometimes you put it together and you're not sure if you've got the right picture, and that's where the other components come in, which is what retail investors often don't appreciate. And that's the trade structure that allows you to limit your risk, and trade timing, which says, okay, I've got a good idea, but is now the right time to be putting it on and making those assessments.
Okay, so one of the biggest challenges I see for retail traders is time management, because they've all got, full-time jobs, part-time jobs, running their own small, medium-sized businesses. We've all been on the professional side. We've all done this full-time, and we can sit at desks and just constantly churn out ideas, and run big watch lists of really high-quality ideas.
Yep.
Have you experienced that type of challenge with any of your mentees that you're speaking to now?
I have, and I guess the key thing is it's a function of time. What takes hours at the start to generate an idea, as the process is worked through and repeated over and over again, and as we've talked about with the template, the whole point is we've got something repeatable. So the time frame goes from hours and hours down to a much shorter time frame, to the point where you might see something in the news which is reflective of a sector that you might have looked at in the past, or an industry that you had been looking at, or maybe it's something on your watch list and you can say, okay, now's the time that I need to go and put that idea into action. So having no access to all the institutional data, all the research departments, is, in one sense, it's a burden that's gone, because you're looking to do this for yourself. You want to be independent. You want to generate your own ideas. The time component starts out this long. As you get more experienced, it shortens.
So what I think is quite interesting about you, and this is coming a bit from left field, all of our other mentors, including myself, we worked in London and New York and major financial centers. Now, I'm not saying, obviously, Singapore's a major financial center now, but let's go back in the day, Melbourne and Singapore. You were, to an extent, because you weren't in London and New York, cut out of the noise, okay? And some of the best investors and traders that I've ever come across in my life are actually guys who have never actually worked in these places. And actually, they've been cut away from the noise their entire career, okay? And I think sometimes, like you said there, you can be around the mayhem and the noise, and you get distracted away from what's really important. And that is actually generating really high quality ideas, structuring them well, and just making money, okay? And I'm envisaging you back then sitting in slightly quieter offices, different time zone, not necessarily being so much in the noise, and having time to think and actually analyze and do some proper research without the noise around you and being distracted. Was that the case?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, as you know, there's 45,000 possible investments you can make out there in markets. So cutting out noise is one of the key things that you need to do. And whether it's as a professional investor or as a retail trader. And I guess that's what a lot of the education that the Institute does helps to push that noise away. But we're sitting in regional offices. It probably wasn't so good for politics. It was never my strong suit anyway, so it didn't matter. But
we tend to hire guys at the Institute whose strong suit is not politics because we prefer to make money.
Exactly. So you had to be self-starting. You didn't have analysts sitting around the corner that would just wander by and talk to. You didn't have all the noise of the trading floor. We'd have some traders, and we'd be communal and sharing all our ideas,
Yeah.
but there was a lot of that noise that we weren't exposed to, which actually turned out to be an advantage.
I think it's a massive advantage because when I think back, because I've essentially had 2 careers as a trader, one on the investment banking side, market making and prop, and then a break followed by trading with my own money. Obviously, it was a challenge to go and do that, starting with your own money, because it's a bit different. You've not got that information pool around you. But you're actually at a major advantage as well because you don't have to listen to the nonsense and the noise. It's not there anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and to that point, we turned off CNBC
Yeah.
and Bloomberg News on the TV screens around the room.
Yeah.
Obviously, during the GFC, when things are happening, volatility is through the roof.
Yeah.
You wanted to know what was going on.
Yeah.
But the rest of the time, it was just another source of noise that we just did not need to know about.
Yeah.
So we just cut that out and just worked on generating ideas.
So in the trade idea generation process, you're speaking at the London Super Conference this weekend, and with reference to that trade idea generation process, what are you going to actually be speaking about? What are the guys going to take away from it?
They're going to understand that there is a process. So most of these people that are coming haven't done the education before. So there's obviously the mentors that I talk to are at a different level. They've done it before. The people coming are going to get an understanding of how an idea is generated, but that it's about a process. And by working through top-down and then bottom-up factors, you can repeat that process. And you could take that process and say, okay, I'm going to go and find stocks in Europe now, having done that in America. I'm going to find stocks in a different sector. I'm going to go on holidays for 12 months. I can come back and repeat that process. You're not just shooting arrows in the dark. You've got a template. And so I'm going to work through ideas, and I'm going to have live, actionable ideas. Now, I'd like these people to go and double check it and do it themselves.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have 2 or 3 ideas that they can put into place if they wanted to right now, working through that process from the top down and then the bottom up. Now, the part that I won't be talking about is the execution and the risk management side of things.
Yeah.
So, I think at the end of the day, they're probably best not to rush off and do it, but that's what they're going to be learning about.
So you got some real examples in the presentation that they're going to see?
Yeah, real examples and trades that you could put on today.
Wow, okay. So you mentioned something there that I picked up on, shooting arrows in the dark.
Yeah.
There's a few cliche sayings out there in the market. 90% of managers don't beat the S&P 500 and they're sheep. And any monkey can throw darts at a board and come up with an idea. And they outperform managers. The Anthony Iser trade idea generation process, the performance of that process over the years. How are you beating the monkeys? How are you beating these managers?
I'm comfortably beating the monkeys or the managers.
Right.
And look, there's some very smart and very good managers out there, but I'm comfortably beating them. But more importantly, more than half my mentees are beating the market and beating those long managers out there as well. And that's the most important and satisfying thing.
Oh, totally. I agree. 100%.
Yeah.
Well, Anthony, great to have you in London. Looking forward to your presentation tomorrow at the Super Conference. And we'll probably hook up in Singapore maybe in a few months' time.
Sounds good.
Great to have you in London.
Anton, pleasure. Thanks
Cheers,
so
man.
much.
Thank you.